No doubt we've all seen pictures at some point of images after a time of great destruction. Might be historical photographs from Europe or Asia after the Second World War, or video from news crews on the scene after a natural disaster like a major hurricane, a slew of tornadoes, an earthquake, or widespread raging fires. Maybe even some of you have experienced something like that firsthand. After some event of widespread devastation, when one comes home and finds everything in ruins, where does one begin? This is the backdrop of today's first reading. The remnant of Israel has returned from exile in Babylon. They've come home to find their homeland left in utter destruction and devastation. The task of rebuilding now falls to them. If this was you, if there was destruction all around you, how would you begin to rebuild? Where would you begin to rebuild? It would be only natural to begin where your house was, where your property is. You might sift through the debris, salvage what you can, and then start rebuilding. Well, all of this is a very natural thing to do in such circumstances like this. Isaiah says, in essence, don't just think about yourself. Don't forget about the poor. Don't forget about those who are worse off than you. So he instructs his people to share their bread with the hungry, to help shelter the homeless, and to clothe the naked. And that is what the Lord is asking you to do as well. I mean, our lives will never be perfect in this life. There will always be some excuse to do nothing. The Lord is not asking you to wait until everything is perfect in your life before you help others, but rather help those that we encounter today, no matter what our situation might be. On a larger level, in the time of Isaiah, the tendency of those returning was to only worry about oneself, one's family, or try to ensure political stability or even military protections. But once more, Isaiah says, start with those who are most in need. Do not forsake those around you. If you do this, as Isaiah says, then you allow the light of the Lord to shine through you to others, indeed to the nations. Caring for others allows you to become a beacon for even more, a beacon of God's love. This should not surprise us. Think for a moment like someone like St. Teresa of Calcutta. Mother Teresa did not gain fame because of her looks, her wealth, her athletic ability, or her charismatic speeches. She simply started taking care of those in need whom she encountered around her every day. And from there it built. Others were inspired to join her in her work. And eventually the entire world not only came to recognize what the good she was doing, but even more people joined her in her mission of caring for the poor and the destitute. And it was simply by taking care of those in need that she encountered in her life that she became a beacon of light and goodness. And Mother Teresa was just one example of many who bear the name of Christ, who put their faith into action. You see, Isaiah knows the larger impact of doing what God asks of us, or on the other hand, of not doing what God asks of us, of being faithful to God or just doing what is best for ourselves. For Isaiah, he sees it as a generational question. He knows how those who choose to act in God's name in his time will impact those who come after them. So the example that we set today will no doubt set the blueprint for those who will come after us. What message are we sending to our children, our future grandchildren? If your children see that you are faithful to God's commands, then you have set them up to walk in the ways of the Lord. If, on the other hand, you're only faithful to yourself and what you want, then you have set those up who come after you to go down the path of destruction once again. In the gospel today, Jesus makes an extraordinary statement. He tells his disciples, which includes us, that they are to be salt for the earth and light to the world. The consequences of this are tremendous. Christianity is not just some passive, ethereal, spiritual meditation. Christianity is not just some mere internal conviction. Christianity is not just some remote theological tract for meditation and self-improvement. No, if we are to call ourselves Christians, then that means that we must be willing to have an impact in the world, on our world, right now. And this is what it means to be both salt and light. Think about this for a moment. Until the birth of modern refrigeration and other preservation techniques, salt was the most used preservative for food. It was used so that food would not spoil or have to be thrown away. Salt allowed people to survive when otherwise they would have perished. Salt enabled travel and expanded commerce. Salt was key to building up human civilizations. So when Jesus tells us that we must be salt, it does not mean that we're supposed to be salty. That'd be someone who is tough, bitter, even mean or hurtful. Rather, being salt means that we must seek to preserve that which is good and true. That is why here at Christ the King, we invest our resources in the religious education of our young, whether they go to school here or part of our faith formation program. That is why as a church, we publish, religious books and produce all sorts of Catholic media. And that's why we promote and share these things, so that what has been given to us will not be lost or thrown away. And let's be realistic. When it comes to the faith in the world today, these can indeed be lean times. If we are to survive, we must take it upon ourselves to preserve that which has been given to us, to take an active role in sharing it and passing it on. We do this not just so that what Jesus has given to us will not be lost, but also so that it can be spread to the whole world. After all, Jesus does not tell us that we're to be salt and just to keep it in our own storehouses just for ourselves. But rather, just like physical food, we must be willing to share the spiritual food and drink with others, lest their souls starve to death in the desert of this age. Jesus also tells us that we must be light for the world. Yes, Jesus is the true light of the world, but he makes it clear that those who bear his name should also be light for the world as well. Of course, our light comes not from ourselves, but from Christ himself, by virtue of our baptism. Nevertheless, that light is there within us, no matter how small it may seem at times. And so we must be willing to share this light, to shine forth the light of God's goodness to others. That is why here at Christ the King, for example, we have an active St. Vincent de Paul Society to serve the poor, why we support a sister parish in San Suzanne, Haiti, why we have an outreach in Nicaraguan Christian ministries, why we support the St. Michael Legal Clinic, and why we support the efforts of our bishop, along with other parishes throughout the diocese, and the Catholic Ministry Appeal that does so much good for so many people in the Tampa Bay area. But it's not just these organizations' efforts that we can just rest in and think we've done our part. What we cannot do is be limited just to a contribution that will help those that we may never see. What do we do when we come across someone in need? How do we treat them? It doesn't just have to be some sort of physical need, because there's all sorts of people out there who are hurting and looking for compassion and understanding. These are opportunities that the Lord gives to us. He gives these opportunities to us to shine. After all, what good is it to be light to the world if we conceal that light within ourselves solely in a private manner? No, the Lord's command cannot be any clearer. We should not seek to hoard the light. Rather, he tells us to shine. To shine for all the world to see, so that those who have lost the light may return, and those who are lost in darkness may find him.